All right, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Hotel Moment. I'm joined here by Wendy. Wendy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Wendy Kallergis. How are you today? And I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Miami and the Beaches Hotel Association. Happy to chat with you today, Ray.
Thanks, thank you. Great to have you with us. And I guess the easiest way to start is tell us a bit about GmbHA.
So the organization I think it's like, gosh, it started in the 80s, and I've been president for over, I think, 12. I'm losing track of time. Are you with COVID?
With
I've been, I
everything
guess,
going on, yeah.
yeah, it's 12 years, 12 years ago. And I'm so, it was the most exciting opportunity to get this job because my background it was working in hotels, and then you stray away. I started out cooking in hotels. That's what my first job was, because I went to did my junior year abroad in Paris, and I studied. My mom said, and I'm so glad she said this, you got to go to the Sorbonne, you got to go to Cordon Bleu while you're there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I went to Cordon Bleu and just really loved to cook. My family loved to cook. We had restaurants in Maine. So it gave me a great opportunity to learn French cooking, which I really think is the basics of French cooking, classical French cuisine. I tell students that all the time. You need to learn the classics. And it's just been a really great ride. And so most of my career, unfortunately, while it wasn't cooking here in Miami, because at that time, there really weren't many women cooking in Miami. What was it, 25 plus years ago. And so I ended up getting into catering and conference services. So I became like a director of catering conference services in Intercontinental Hotel, the Biltmore Hotel, which is a historical property built in
That's fine.
1926. Probably was my best incredible career there, as well as the Mayfair Hotel, which was at that time, it was a luxury property, along with the Gmbha Hotel, which is a Chica 5-star hotel from Italy. And this was back in the 90s. And then I made like a switch, because Wyndham was coming in to take over the Gmbha Hotel.
Yeah.
And all of us on the executive team were like, we got to find another job, because when you work in luxury, right, you're like, oh my God, this is so much fun. We had that club
Yeah.
regime, the
Yeah.
club, and we had Michael Jackson suite. We had a suite for Prince. So this is all the celebrities would come and stay at that hotel. It was
Mhm.
amazing. Pavarotti performed, and it was just an amazing hotel. So I ended up getting a job, which is really interesting. It was my first Monday through Friday job, and it was the president of the Miami City Club, which was a private membership club, very corporate, all
Interesting. Yeah.
CEOs, and it was downtown Miami on the 55th floor of the Southeast Bank building. So it was all glass. It was just a beautiful Monday through Friday club. So that was my first Monday through Friday job. And then after that, I ended up I also opened Delano as food and beverage director, which was an Ian Schrager property. It's very exciting opening. Everybody was like, oh my God, we have Ian Schrager coming to town. And the hotel, gorgeous hotel, gorgeous restoration of a historical property. And just the vibe, the excitement. This was the one hotel that I worked at that it opened full, totally full,
Wow.
and it never stopped being full. It was full for months and months, and it was crazy because everybody came down from New York over the weekends, and we had a great restaurant, and just the vibe of Ian Schrager's vibe is really very exciting. I'm so glad I was able to work with him. Then I changed. Then I got years later. I ended up being the president of the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. I was recruited for it, and I'm like, oh, okay. That was after I was at the City Club. I said that okay. So I'll go to the beach. Wouldn't mind being on the beach. And so I got that job. I was there for, I think, 3 or 4 years, because while it was a hospitality really driven chamber of commerce, I was missing hotels. I was missing
Yeah.
being in hotels. So I was a member of the hotel association that I run now, and my predecessor announced his retirement, and I knew everybody on the board. And I didn't even think about, I knew Stu was retiring, but I didn't think, oh God, should I go after that job? And then
Yeah.
my husband actually said, you should go after that job. So I went after it. I knew the board members. They were like, are you kidding? You want to come? Yeah, no, we'll hire you. And I got some good advice, because I followed someone that founded the organization. had a lot of advocacy, government relations with the state level and the local level. And I was, how do I follow his footsteps? What do I do? And I talked to my friend who is with PwC, Scott Berman. He's a hospitality industry analyst for everywhere. And he gave me great advice. He said, Wendy, don't talk about the chamber job, talk about your hotel career when you go into these hotels. And that was so commonsensical, but it really, to this day, I still talk about my career. And what I did was I reached out to all the hotels on the mainland because most of the beach hotels were already in the organization. So I went into airport hotels, limited service. At that time, there were very few luxury hotels here when I started, and we've grown significantly with luxury. But really just getting to know the GMs and everything. And one of the things that we did is we added a considerable amount of events. I would go into hotels and do directors of sales panels. I would do panels with the airport director and the port director, and just get the industry more engaged with events through the hotels.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I was just saying, so that actually leads to a great question, which was, how have you guys kept that engagement going now with everything going on? There's so much changeover happening.
So many Zooms.
Yeah, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of conversations.
A lot of webinars,
Yeah, and to that point, FAU recently released, of course, a study that they did on that and about how the industry itself has seen such a change, where the senior people who have been in the industry, myself, my background is in hospitality. I did it for a decade. With the pandemic, I transitioned into a new role. So now I left the industry into a supplier side instead. I'm still working with hotels. And to your point, you leave hotels, but you can't really leave hotels because we all love hospitality. We love, it's what we do and we did. And so on that end, it's interesting seeing that really became the norm, though, is that a lot of people did change. A lot of people did leave the industry. And so have you guys seen that impact on your side and create both the challenge of staffing, training, and really it's the whole world of driving engagement now as well? How's that changed for your membership?
Yeah, and I didn't even know what Zoom was until, what was it, March 13th or 14th of that year, I didn't even know what a Zoom was. So we just really started. The first thing that we had to do, Ray, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, everybody was freaking out. The general manager, we have a board of 35, 29 are hotel GMs or managing directors. And then we have the port director and the airport director, American Airlines, and all the schools. Like we have FIU Dean, Chapel School. We have Miami-Dade College. We have education and operators, and a couple of owner reps, which we started to incorporate because our chair is also, she used to be in operations, Florencia Tabini from MDM Group, but they're building, she's now in development. So she's converted from operations to development with MDM because they're doing the Marriott World Center project, 1,500 rooms, and they're going to move forward with it. But it was so government driven, the guidelines, as that the government they started moving forward on what are we going to allow, what are we not going to allow, what are the guidelines going to be. And it was comical on these Zooms when we get on the Zoom, because they had a hotel task force with the county mayor. And then someone all of a sudden mentions, oh, what is the White House doing? And then what is Wynn Resort doing? So we all got the guidelines of Wynn to help. So we got the Wynn Resort because we figured they have everything right in their guidelines, which they do. They had every single detail. Take stuff out of that with our hotel GMs and put it together, because the mayor was putting this together for all the industries, restaurant, retail, arts and culture. He was doing the whole new normal handbook. And he didn't know the industry that well. So we had to look at, oh my gosh, so many nights I would be up so late with these guidelines, putting them together. And we're really trying to be involved with the hotel GMs, mostly on our board. And what do we do with them? The CDC guidelines, we have to take those guidelines and then elaborate on them with banquets, the details of how many they can do for weddings and all of that, and then the masks, and then the sanitation, and then the decals on the floors, and this and that. We converted a lot of that into webinars. Like we would have one of our first webinars was with architects and designers, because we figured we need that. And that's really through the help of our hotel GMs, and also just thinking about the brands that we have, like Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton. We'd look at all their stuff. They were, great models for us, obviously. But then with the luxury properties, you got to go a little bit more in depth with even
For sure.
decor, what kind of chairs are going to be in the, like I found the chains took the furniture out, right, of the lobby.
Yep.
And then the luxury, they put in a nice little cute little couch or, something fun so two people could sit, something like that.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
and we had some top architects and designers and engineers on these panels that we were getting people from other countries watching our Zooms.
Oh yeah.
It was
I'm
really fun.
sure. Yeah, and
It was
I would
really
say that's a smart way to approach it though too, because that is, I mean, to that point, all of us looked at a lot of the conversations focused on the health side and how do we help business continue to grow. But to your point, it's the aesthetics, it's the architecture, because there's so many nuances in the industry that it does create that level that you have to really figure out what areas can you adjust and still create that atmosphere for guests, but also
exactly.
create that safety for them as well.
Yes.
So
And
definitely,
food and beverage, I think still needs to be worked out, like banquets, like the banquet
oh
menus
yeah,
and things, because we're in right now, we're still, the governor lifted all the orders, but
mhm,
we are still wearing masks. The hotels are asking their guests to wear masks. And I know I was like at an event this morning and everybody was wearing masks and it was under a tent outside, but everybody was still wearing a mask.
mhm.
Because we're all getting vaccinated, by the way, but I just feel more comfortable right now because how do you know they got vaccinated? How do you
Well,
really
it's
know?
yeah,
you
and
know?
it's that safety, and a lot of people feel like a safety. Like you think about it, a lot of people embraced it to the point that even my wife, she has masks that actually coordinate with her outfits at
Oh
times,
yeah,
or
I know.
she has a light up mask that just changes fun colors and stuff. So those thought process that we've all invested so much into this concept. Yeah, see, yeah, oh, fun. There you go. Yeah, so like your mask there, you have two different designs there, different ways to use it. So that it's that thought process that we've all adopted. This has become part of our safety blanket. It's a normalcy in some ways. But to that point, how have you seen the shift happen? You touched on the food and beverage aspects of it, but have you seen that change even just in the restaurants? Do you find that servers are even carrying tablets out to the beaches for ordering or poolside, or how's that?
Yeah, a lot of technology, absolutely. And I think that what do I want to call them? Not fast food because it's not fast food, but what's great, the trend in just new restaurants too, is they're more like delicious. Like you pick up the pouch, you pick up and you just eat
Gotcha.
it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think that's just booming. I think that's going to keep on going. And I think a lot of the hotels are partnering with local restaurants that do that for their lobby to put them in the lobby. Like that whole like food service, plated service for like lunch.
Mhm.
I think that's not around that much anymore, unless you're going into a restaurant, obviously.
Yeah. Of course.
But everything is in the bowls, and I know that, and I love to see what the Lowe's has a great. They work with local, restaurants, so that's so
Yeah.
cute that they have that, and just the way in which you serve hors d'oeuvre. I'm doing my first live event in June,
Mhm.
and I being a foodie, we were going to do an event in January, but we had this tropical storm coming, so we canceled it. But
Yeah.
what I thought was cute was, and it was the Swire Hotel out of Hong Kong. It was East Miami. They were gonna do a box, like a little cute little box with
Mhm.
4 hors d'oeuvres in it, and give the person the box so they could go back to because
Yep.
nobody wants to. I think past hors d'oeuvres are going to have to be really totally reinvented. You
Yeah, it
know,
is, and it's actually over the pandemic. I actually got married, and that was one of the things we had to
did
address was
you?
how do we do that? Yeah, it was actually at a barn venue out just outside of Seattle. So we had got there with some family and friends there.
Nice.
So yeah, but it was rethinking about how do we still provide food but create it in that safety. To that point, it's how do we do a banquet essentially. My wife's a hotelier as well. So for us,
Oh,
we both put
good.
on our hotel hat and said, well, how do we do this? And ultimately,
What does
to your
she
point, it
do?
was
What does she do in hotels?
she's a regional director of sales.
Oh, great,
So yeah,
great.
so
Yeah, because it's
she has a few
really hard
properties.
to. Yeah, it's just I'm still not there yet. Having come from a catering background and cooking,
Hmm.
I think this whole individually, remember, like these glass little like the skinny
Hmm.
glasses that have gazpacho in it or
Yeah,
soups, which I've been doing
exactly.
for a while. Stuff like that, it's just yours. You own it, and nobody else touches it and stuff. I think that's going to be the new way. I think it should be. It's actually like cleaner, it's more sanitary, and it's
Hmm.
fun.
Hmm.
It's fun
Yeah, and that's
too.
yeah. So and we did it to that style that you were mentioning with the hotels. That we did some of the small boxes, and then for some of the stuff we did individual cups. with it. So they were covered and kept that way. And so everybody had their own space and had their own areas, set the families together and those that shared the household, and really just had to really do a lot more planning in that side.
Yeah,
So from
yeah,
a corporate side, it's interesting because obviously normally we have our setups being for conferences 2 per 6 is typically what you would
right.
see for most meetings. Now it's a 1 per 6, where now you're adjusting how you have to set up and really be able to provide that space. But normally you'd move to rounds for your meal. You can't really do that now. But how do you create that cohesive environment still that everybody looks for in a meeting? That's definitely going to be an interesting pivot for our industry to see how we can adjust and make things work where people can still have meals together that are traveling from across the world, across the country, to have these conferences and meetings. It's still in a safe environment. So definitely a lot to
Yeah.
see. And it's where a lot of our pioneers in our industry are going to put on their out of the box thinking to find these ways to do this. And so in some ways, it's a challenging time for industry, but also an exciting time to see how the industry is going to grow and change. And adapt to these different things and really put on these new thinking caps to
Yeah,
think
no,
about
it
how we're
really,
going to do this.
yeah, new thinking caps is right because they need to do that and they're doing it and it's more thoughtful. There's more different, really thoughtful things going on too in the hotels. But I do think that the conference meeting, what's the word I want? Piece for
Yeah.
hotels is definitely, we really have to really be fun with the food and beverage end of it. I think it has to be creative and to really look like, oh yeah, this is all mine, this is my food,
Yeah.
and just really, yeah, because I think that's been a challenge anyway, and that's where a lot of revenue. I remember when coffee a gallon, you're gonna laugh when I tell you what the price was when $18 a gallon. That was so
That's a steal of a deal nowadays.
but that was back in the like 90s. It was eight,
Yeah.
and people thought, and that was expensive back then. Everybody would always complain about the coffee price, right? It's
Yeah.
so funny.
What would you say the average you find now, just to throw a ballpark figure out there in
Do you want to know
Miami?
what $65 a gallon,
65. Okay. Yeah. So my last
right?
property, I think we were at 45.
Yeah,
So for a gallon of coffee, people are like, can I just get the
65.
gallon from Starbucks and bring it in? They're like, no, unfortunately, that's outside catering. Doesn't work that way. But yeah, so and I guess on that end, really looking forward then, what would you see projection wise for the Florida market and or for the greater Miami Beach market there anyways? Let's
Yeah,
see for your futures you guys are thinking.
yeah, I got, well, and also for the panel I was moderating this morning, since it was real estate, I actually, just to share with you, the hotel occupancy. I don't know, Ray, what happened. How did we get to be so busy so fast, Miami and Florida? Because
Yeah,
Miami and Florida are doing very well.
definitely.
And it was just like, we didn't even plan it. We had no, first of all, we didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow for over a year, what tomorrow will bring. So they're busy. Everybody, we didn't the downtown properties, downtown Brickell busy, the beach, properties obviously busy with a lot of leisure, but also you've got W Hotel and Lowe's Hotel and
Hmm.
Marriott's that are on the water that are doing meetings. They've got business
Wow,
during the week. So it's
that's
really
exciting.
this rebirth of just, in the beginning, the Hyatt and the Intercontinental, those are the two biggest
Mhm.
properties downtown. It was very slow. And in my mind, I was like, okay, they've got to get more business. We've got to get more business into their hotels because I was just worried about everybody. And the airport hotels too were slow. Remember when there weren't that many flights coming in?
Yeah.
And a lot of the limited service brands were very slow. And now everybody's busy. I'm like, everybody is busy. And I hope the summer is good to us. And I think it will be. But you are seeing now meetings in the hotels. The weekends are leisure. And the weekends,
Hmm.
even downtown, we have so much stuff downtown now, restaurants and cultural organizations, that they're much busier than I thought they would ever be. So here we are, Miami-Dade, hotel occupancy across Miami-Dade is 72%, which 20% higher than last year. And RevPAR, which I'm sure you love, RevPAR,
Yeah.
is 103.7% up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
And,
Well,
and
I was just say it just shows about our industry and how it can rebound. I think that the term that I've heard most commonly now is that I believe they're calling it revenge travel. All that pent up travel demand is there, which is nice. It's great for the industry. Great to see this bounce back. It is to our earlier conversation before we got started here is that we get the ability to work from home now. So for a lot of people, if you can work from a hotel, you can travel more, you can extend your stay and stay longer. If you decide that, you know what, I really like this hotel, I'm going to stay here longer. which is great. It's all great things for the properties and great ways for our industry to continue to bounce back and still continue to grow and develop. So that's huge to see. I
And
know
the suites, like the luxury had really taken, so many New Yorkers in Philadelphia, mostly a lot of New Yorkers came down for, and they had extended stay with adjoining bedrooms for kids, and they set up their offices in the suites. It's incredible.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, being in the industry, the wife and I also, when we travel, we do that same thing. We get a suite because both of us work from home. So both of us have the ability that we need to be on calls at the same time. So we have to be in different areas. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting change to our industry that there's a lot larger of a focus going that direction than there was previously, where now people took it for granted that I could go stay, go travel versus now they want to. And the great part for us as being in the industry is that you want to encourage that. You want to be out there. The people that are going to lead this change should be people from our industry who are showing that, hey, we're going to be out there traveling because we feel like it's enough safety precautions have been taken that we can feel safe and comfortable doing this. So definitely on that. In fact, actually, I'm traveling next week for an in-person mixer as well. So I'm finding myself on the road, being out there as well, wanting to make sure that we're definitely showing that it is a safe time to travel and to get back out there. But I did want to touch on too is the staffing piece. I was on a panel recently that one of the conversations they had was geared towards how the minimum to get somebody to go to work nowadays, you have an interest to even apply for it. They've had to raise their minimum wage from being $14 an hour or $15 an hour for a housekeeper up to 18, 19 beyond that. How has your constituents seen that the staffing impact for their
the same,
properties?
the exact same thing that you were saying is, I think probably the hardest job during COVID was housekeeping. Anyone that had to go into the rooms, the bellmen and women, the engineers and the housekeepers, because you're going into someone's room. Are they masked? Are they? I think that was really tough, really tough. And I do think that exactly what you're saying, that a lot of our properties, and we've been on many calls with our HR directors and whatnot, but the wage is going up. They're adding more, to the wage, which I think is very important. And also, and this kind of applies to most of the hourly employees, and they are getting back. It's getting a little bit better with staffing. More people are coming back, and I do think some of them are waiting too. They have unemployment, they have benefits, they're getting benefits and whatnot. I think they're just waiting because they had to be working in a hotel, which is probably one of the hardest jobs during the beginning of COVID, especially like when the city was shut down, but some hotels were open. And I also want to share with you that we are very fortunate to have great hospitality schools. So Miami-Dade College has a wonderful training program. They've been having them for years. Front desk, housekeepers, engineers. So they're very busy recruiting students to participate. And we're also working with a lot of not-for-profits, right, that have people that are eligible to be trained and go to work. So that's exciting. I think it's a really exciting time right now because it has been very challenging. Everybody has the same story about staffing. It's on the national news all the time now, and in the restaurants as well, and cooks too. So we're really, I think the worst is over in that situation, because I think everybody just realized this is what we need, and let's go for it. We have in there, and plus the business is more constant. It's not like they have to worry about next week or during the week versus the weekend. It's a very consistent rhythm. There's a good rhythm going on right now.
Definitely. Yeah. And CoStar, of course, does the STR report. And definitely, it's always focused on top markets are Miami, Tampa, Florida in general, really. It's just happening there.
Kind of
so
incredible.
it's definitely rebounding there, which has been exciting to see and definitely great to see, because I think a lot of the country is going to start looking, at what you guys are doing there to see how, as we move forward, continue to ramp up. To your point, it's this quick rush of people coming back to hotels and hotels saying, okay, what do I do now? How do I get back on my feet and keep track of all this happening and try to find that consistency? Because it has been one of those things, and our industry is known that we have our ups and downs, we have our peaks and valleys. And right now, that peak and valley is very quick to switch week by week. We don't know next week's going to bring necessarily as confidently. unless it is sometimes in settings of resorts and such like that, where people are planning a little further out in your booking window. But for the major metropolitan cities, you don't see that quite nearly as that same robustness. Definitely a interesting time to do. And to your point, it's been great to see people returning. I know one of the things that a friend of mine from Wyndham mentioned too that he saw on some of his properties. He's based over here on the West Coast, but was that the challenges from some of the line level employees was that they didn't have access to childcare because with COVID going on, childcare is still adjusted for daycares and such. So that's presented another challenge too, beyond just the salary piece is that, yeah, so it's definitely created some interesting challenges with that. Everybody's trying to learn how to adapt to this and try to figure out what works. I did want to end on a couple items here. So real quick, if you have just three big takeaways for the team, for anybody on whether that's ways to help retain staffing or any inventive ideas you've seen from your constituents there.
I really think that it's still the best industry to work in. There's just so many opportunities here in Miami we have so much growth of new hotels as well. And I think it's just a great, I think that we're in a place where we're feeling so much better. We're confident that things are definitely going to be better and very quickly. We're almost where we were. Once we get the cruise industry back, everything's open now. And it's a great career because you can start anywhere. You can start in housekeeping. You can be a doorman or woman. You can be a cook, whatever. And then you can stay that. You can also excel not only in that area, as well as there's hotel development. That's another career that's really great because we have so many developers here now and so many new projects here. That's exciting. So I wouldn't get, the worst is definitely over, and it's really, everybody is just getting back. And I think the family, everybody who has kids, they're comfortable in school. We all had different stress going on. If you had small kids in school, they're at home, and now the schools are opening back up and everything. So I recommend everybody just think about what they learned during COVID and what their takeaway is and how they want to work in the industry with a positive attitude. Because I think everybody who wants to come back to work wherever they work, they would do it because they miss it. They miss it.
Definitely. And we definitely appreciate the optimism there. So one quick other item did want to touch on as well is, of course, you have quite the collection of cookbooks behind you. What was your favorite dish you cooked during the pandemic?
Oh my gosh. A lot of like stews, because you put like coq au vin. And then also, and my kids made me this, but I love to make fish soup because you get, and by the way, great shopping. Wild Pork, that company, when they have incredible, from Argentina. So everything's frozen, but it's all fresh frozen. So you can get mussels, you can get shrimp, you can get anything that you want. And it's all delicious. Tuna, the fish is so good. The lamb, everything's delicious. So you make a fish soup, you can just decide what you want to put in it. They tended to be tomato based with garlic and fresh herbs. My kids had planted a garden for me in the backyard, so I had fresh rosemary and basil and Italian parsley, and I love my garden now. There's just many takeaways. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, definitely. We've had some friends definitely take up gardening more because with everything going on, you have a little more time on your hands to tend to things like that, where they find different passions, different ways to spend their energy that they may not have realized before. Wendy, definitely appreciate the optimism and everything you shared. Of course, the industry is going through a huge change. So it's great to have leaders like yourself helping lead that charge and bring that positivity to everybody. And on that note, I was actually going to share with everybody as well so we're actually going to have a deep dive into the staffing crisis that we're hosting here at Hotel Moment. So the panel is actually going to have different industry leaders, including Dr. Ricci there from FAU is going to be part of our panel there.
It's great.
So we'll actually have those on May 25th. So definitely a huge event. We would love for everybody to join in and listen in wherever they can. Definitely appreciate that, Wendy. Again, definitely appreciate the time there and having you join us, and look forward to it as well. All right, have a great day. Thanks again.
Take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.